The Velthari had watched Earth for 300 years. They floated in their massive ships beyond the edge of the solar system, studying the strange creatures who lived on the blue planet. Humans, they called themselves. Weak, short-lived, always fighting each other over small pieces of land. The Velthari found them amusing, like animals in a cage. Ambassador Thalo was old, even by his species' standards. He had lived for 2,000 years and had seen many primitive worlds. He had watched civilizations rise and fall. He had offered salvation to 17 different species when the devourer swarm came for them. All 17 had begged. All 17 had cried and fought among themselves. The Velthari had taken a few million from each world, the smartest and strongest, and left the rest to die. It was mercy, Thalo believed. Better to save some than none. Now the swarm was coming for Earth. The long-range sensors had detected them 6 months ago. Billions of living ships moving through space like a dark cloud of hunger. They ate everything. Planets, moons, stars. Nothing stopped them. Nothing ever had. Thalo prepared his message to humanity. He sat in his golden chamber aboard the great vessel and spoke the words he had spoken many times before. "Primitive species of Sol 3, he began. A great darkness approaches your world. You have 17 cycles before total extinction. The devourer swarm cannot be stopped. Your weapons are useless. Your technology is that of children. But the Velthari Collective offers mercy. We will save 2 million of your kind. Choose your survivors. Plead your case. We await your gratitude." He sent the message to every corner of Earth. Every government received it. Every television showed it. Every phone and computer displayed his words. Thalo leaned back and waited for the chaos to begin. On Earth, the message arrived at 3 in the morning in Korea. Minister Jiwoo was already awake. She never slept much these days. The world had too many problems, and she spent her nights reading reports and drinking cold tea. When the alien message appeared on her screen, she read it 3 times. She did not panic. She did not cry. She picked up her phone and called General Dong-Soo. "Have you seen it?" she asked. "I have," the general replied. His voice was rough from sleep, but steady. "What do you want to do?" "Call everyone. The president, the other ministers, the Americans, the Chinese, the Europeans, everyone." "And what do we tell them?" Jiwoo looked at the message again. 2 million people, out of 8 billion. The aliens wanted humanity to choose who would live and who would die. They wanted desperate humans to beg for scraps of survival. "We tell them nothing yet," she said. "We listen first. We think. We do not panic." By sunrise, the world's leaders had gathered in a secret video call. They argued for hours. Some wanted to accept the offer immediately. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to pray. The Americans suggested sending a delegation to negotiate for more survivors. The Europeans wanted to form a committee. General Dong-Soo sat in silence through most of it. He was a soldier, not a politician. He had fought in 3 wars and had buried too many friends. He did not trust easily, and he certainly did not trust aliens who appeared from nowhere offering help. "Has anyone asked," he finally said, "why they are helping us?" The room went quiet. "What do you mean?" the American president asked. "I mean, these creatures watched us for centuries. They never said hello. They never warned us about this swarm before now. Why do they suddenly care if we live or die?" No one had an answer. In a bunker beneath the mountains, Dr. Taiho received a different kind of call. He was a physicist, one of the best on Earth. 10 years ago, he had proposed a theoretical weapon that could bend gravity itself. Everyone had called him crazy. The project had been canceled. His career had been destroyed. Now, a woman in a military uniform stood in his small apartment. "Dr. Taiho," she said, "your country needs you." "My country said my work was impossible." "Your country was wrong. How fast can you build it?" Taiho looked at her for a long moment. "Build what exactly?" Whatever it takes to kill 1 billion alien ships. For the first time in years, Taiho smiled. Captain Yuna received her orders while aboard a submarine in the Pacific Ocean. She was 43 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She had commanded ships for 20 years. She had never lost a battle. She had also never fought anything except other humans. Her orders were simple. Report to a location that did not exist on any map. Take command of a fleet that officially did not exist. Prepare for a war that no one would ever speak of publicly. She asked no questions. She gathered her crew and disappeared into the darkness. Ambassador Thalo waited for Earth's response. He waited for crying messages from leaders begging for more spots on the rescue ships. He waited for riots in the streets. He waited for humanity to tear itself apart. Instead, he received only silence. 1 day passed, then 2, then 5. Perhaps they did not understand, his assistant suggested. Thalo shook his head. He was watching Earth's communications carefully. The humans were still talking to each other, still broadcasting their music and their news, but not a single message came to the Velthari, not a single plea. They understood, Thalo said quietly. They are simply not responding. But why? Thalo did not know. In 2,000 years, he had never seen a species stay silent in the face of extinction. It made no sense. It was not logical. Deep in his ancient heart, Ambassador Thalo felt something he had not felt in centuries. He felt afraid. 2 weeks had passed since the Velthari message. The galaxy watched Earth with growing confusion. Ambassador Thalo sent 3 more messages, each one more urgent than the last. He explained the horror of the swarm in detail. He described how they would eat every living thing, down to the smallest insect. He promised that the Velthari ships were warm and safe. Earth said nothing. In the Velthari council chambers, the elders gathered to discuss this strange situation. They were ancient beings, each one thousands of years old. They had seen the rise and fall of empires. They had guided lesser species through countless disasters. They considered themselves wise beyond measure. "The humans must be in shock," one elder said. "Their primitive minds cannot process the truth." "Perhaps they are fighting among themselves," another suggested. "Too busy killing each other to respond." Thalo shook his head slowly. "I have been monitoring their planet. There is no civil war, no mass panic. Their factories are running. Their cities are calm. They are simply ignoring us." "Impossible," the eldest of them said. "No species ignores the swarm." But Earth remained silent. In a secret facility buried deep underground, Dr. Taiho worked without sleep. His team had grown from 5 people to 500 in just 2 weeks. Engineers, physicists, mathematicians, and soldiers all worked side by side. The walls were covered with equations and blueprints. The air smelled like coffee and desperation. They called it Project Aurora. On paper, it was a power station. In reality, it was the most destructive weapon ever conceived by human minds. A device that could fold space itself, creating a tiny black hole that would exist for only a few seconds. Long enough to swallow an army. Long enough to end a war. "Can we build it in time?" General Dongsu asked during his daily visit. Taiho looked at his calculations. His hands were shaking from exhaustion. "Maybe. If everything goes perfectly, if nothing breaks, if we get every resource we need." "You will get everything," Dongsu said. "The entire world is working on this. Factories in every country, scientists from every university. We have never been this united before." Taiho laughed bitterly. "It took the end of the world to make us stop fighting each other." Across the ocean, a young engineer named Sumin left her wedding. She had been standing at the altar, beautiful in her white dress, when her phone buzzed with a coded message. She looked at her future husband, saw the confusion in his eyes, and knew she could not explain. "I am sorry," she said. "I have to go." She never saw him again. Suman was one of the best weapons designers in the world. She had built missiles that could hit a target from 1,000 kilometers away. Now, she was building something much bigger, something that would fly through space and punch holes in alien ships. She worked 18 hours a day. She forgot to eat. She forgot what sunlight looked like. But every time she felt tired, she thought about her family, her parents, her little brother. 8 billion people who would die if she failed. Sleep could wait. Captain Yuna arrived at the secret shipyard hidden beneath the Arctic ice. What she saw there made her stop and stare. Ships, massive ships, bigger than anything she had ever commanded. They were being built at impossible speed, welded together by robots and human hands, working in perfect coordination. "How is this possible?" she whispered. A young officer named Junho walked up beside her. He was a pilot, barely 30 years old, with quick eyes and a confident smile. "They started building these 2 years ago," he said. "The government knew something was coming. They just did not know what." 2 years? Secret facilities all over the world, underground factories, hidden bases. The public knows nothing. The aliens know nothing. He grinned. Surprise. Yuna watched the workers swarm over the ships like ants building a nest. She had always believed humanity was too divided to accomplish anything great, too busy fighting over borders and resources and old grudges. She had been wrong. In her small office, analyst Yunji stared at her computer screen with growing horror. She was an intelligence expert, trained to decode enemy communications. For the past week, she had been listening to Velthari transmissions, using algorithms to crack their language. Now she understood what they were saying. The Velthari did not want to save humanity. They never had. Their ships were not rescue vessels. They were collection ships. For thousands of years, the Velthari had harvested intelligent species facing extinction. They took the best specimens and studied them, used them, bred them like livestock. The 17 species they had saved before were now slaves. Guinea pigs for genetic experiments. Their children were born in cages. Yunji's hands trembled as she prepared her report. She thought about Minister Jiwoo's decision to stay silent. At the time, it had seemed strange. Now it seemed like wisdom. They had almost walked into a trap. Ambassador Thalo received his final answer from humanity on the 19th day. It was not a message. It was a signal. His sensors detected massive energy readings coming from Earth's orbit. Energy readings that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. He turned on his viewing screen and saw them. Ships. Human ships. 300 of them, floating in formation around their planet like a shield of steel and fire. "How?" his assistant gasped. "They had nothing. We watched them. They were building cars and phones and toys." Thalo said nothing. He was too busy counting the weapons on those ships, weapons that looked crude and brutal and absolutely terrifying. The humans had been preparing for war while pretending to be helpless. They had fooled the Velthari completely. Thalo thought about all the species he had watched beg and cry and tear themselves apart. He thought about how superior he had always felt, how merciful, how wise. Now he understood the truth. The humans had never needed his mercy. They had been waiting, silent and patient, sharpening their knives in the dark. He sent an urgent message to the Velthari homeworld. "We have made a terrible mistake." The galaxy had many eyes. Thousands of species across hundreds of star systems watched the small blue planet called Earth. They had heard the Velthari offer of salvation. They had seen humanity's strange silence. Now they waited to see what would happen next. Minister Jiwoo stood in a small room deep beneath the mountains. The walls were made of thick concrete, designed to survive nuclear war. Around her stood the people who had become her family over the past weeks. Captain Yuna, still in her naval uniform, her face hard as stone. General Dongsu, who had not slept in 3 days. Dr. Taiho, whose hands were bandaged from radiation burns. And Yunji, the young analyst who had discovered the Velthari's true nature. "Are we ready?" Jiwoo asked. "The fleet is in position," Yuna said. 312 ships. It is not enough to stop the swarm, but it will make them bleed. The weapon needs 5 more days, Taiho added. If we can hold them that long, we have a chance. Jiwoo nodded. She had prepared her words carefully. She had written them and rewritten them 100 times. Now she would speak them to the entire galaxy. "Begin the transmission," she said. A red light blinked on. Jiwoo looked into the camera. Behind her, a screen showed Earth's new fleet floating in the darkness of space. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "To the Velthari Collective and all who are listening, my name is Jiwoo. I speak for the people of Earth." Her voice was calm, steady, not angry, not afraid, simply certain. 3 weeks ago, you sent us a message. You told us to choose 2 million people to save. You told us to beg for your mercy. You told us we were primitive and helpless and doomed." She paused. "We have spent these weeks learning about you. We have decoded your communications. We have studied your history. We know what you truly are." In his ship, Ambassador Thalo watched with growing dread. "You are not saviors," Jiwoo continued. "You are farmers. For thousands of years, you have harvested dying species like crops. You take the strongest and the smartest and turn them into slaves. You watch the rest burn and call it mercy." She stepped closer to the camera. Her eyes were dark and hard. "We have seen what happened to the 17 species you saved before us. We have seen their children born in cages. We have seen their people used as test subjects for your experiments. You offer salvation, but your salvation is a different kind of death." The transmission cut to the fleet. Ship after ship filled the screen, crude, brutal vessels covered in weapons and armor. They looked nothing like the elegant Velthari cruisers. They looked like fists made of metal. Captain Yuna stepped forward. Her voice was not calm like Jiwoo's. It was cold. The voice of someone who had already accepted death and found it did not frighten her. "I am Yuna. I command Earth's defense fleet. The swarm is coming. We know this. We have known it for weeks. We did not spend that time crying or begging. We spent it building." She gestured at the ships behind her. "These vessels were constructed by every nation on Earth working together. Our factories ran day and night. Our scientists shared secrets they had guarded for decades. Our soldiers trained for a war that seemed impossible to win." Her jaw tightened. "The swarm has destroyed hundreds of worlds. It has never been stopped. But it has also never faced humanity. We have been fighting extinction since we crawled from the ocean. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We do not know how to surrender. We only know how to endure." Minister Jiwoo returned to the center of the frame. "To the Velthari we say this. Keep your ships. Keep your mercy. We do not want your salvation. We would rather die free than live as your cattle. To the swarm we say this. Come. We are waiting. Bring your billions of ships and your endless hunger. We will not run. We will not hide. We will meet you in the darkness between stars and teach you what humanity is made of. To the rest of the galaxy we say this. We do not ask for help. We do not expect it. But know that Earth will stand, or Earth will fall. Either way, we will do it on our feet, not on our knees." She raised her chin. Her final words were quiet, but carried the weight of a planet. "We are humanity. We bow to no one." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, silence fell. Species who had watched others beg and grovel sat stunned. The Velthari, who had felt so superior for so long, retreated to their council chambers in confusion. Even the swarm, moving ever closer, seemed to pause in the darkness. On Earth, The people watched their leaders speak and felt something strange in their chests. Pride, unity, a feeling that they were part of something bigger than themselves. In the underground bunker, Jiwoo turned off the camera. Her hands were shaking now. The calm she had shown was an act, one she had practiced for hours. Inside, she was terrified. But fear did not matter. Only action mattered. "How long until the swarm arrives?" she asked. 5 days, General Dongsu said. "Maybe 6. Then we have 5 days to finish the weapon, 5 days to prepare our people, 5 days to become something the galaxy has never seen." Captain Yuna checked her communicator. Messages were flooding in from the fleet. Every pilot, every soldier, every engineer wanted to say the same thing. They were ready. They were not afraid. They were proud. "They are good people," Yuna said softly. "They deserve better than this." "Then let us give them better," Jiwoo replied. "Let us give them victory." Outside the bunker, the sun rose over the mountains. It was a beautiful morning. Birds sang in the trees. Children walked to school. Life continued as it always had. But everything had changed. Earth had spoken. Now it would fight. The swarm arrived on the 5th day. Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of the Gwangaeto, humanity's largest warship. Through the viewing window, she could see the stars. Beautiful, peaceful. And then, slowly, the stars began to disappear. One by one, they blinked out as something massive moved in front of them. "Contact," her sensor officer said, his voice tight with fear. "Multiple contacts, thousands, tens of thousands." The swarm filled the screen. Living ships, each one a nightmare of teeth and tentacles and hunger. They moved like a school of fish, flowing through space in patterns that seemed almost beautiful. Behind them came larger vessels, bloated and horrible, carrying the queen mines that controlled the horde. Yuna had seen war, she had seen death, but she had never seen anything like this. "All ships," she said into her communicator. "This is Captain Yuna. You know why we are here. You know what is at stake. Today we fight for every person on Earth, every child, every mother, every father. We fight for everyone who cannot fight for themselves." She paused. "Some of us will not survive this day. That is the price of freedom, but we will make them pay for every ship they take. We will hurt them so badly that they will remember humanity forever." Her voice hardened. "All ships, engage." 312 human vessels surged forward. They were smaller than the swarm ships, slower, less advanced, but they were armed with weapons designed by desperate genius, missiles that could crack planets, lasers that burned hotter than stars, and in every cockpit sat a human being who had chosen to fight instead of run. Pilot Junho flew at the front of the fighter wing. His ship was tiny compared to the monsters ahead, but his hands were steady on the controls. He had grown up on stories of heroes who fought against impossible odds. Now he was living one of those stories. "Wing 2, follow me," he ordered. "We target the queen mines. Cut off the head and the body dies." His fighters screamed toward the swarm. Around him, explosions bloomed like flowers. Ships died in flashes of light. He did not look at them. He could not afford to think about the friends he was losing. The first wave of swarm ships hit the human fleet like a hammer. The Gwangaeto shook as organic missiles slammed into its hull. Yuna grabbed her command chair to keep from falling. "Damage report. Hull breach on deck 7. Weapons still operational. Keep firing. Do not stop firing until we are dust." Deep inside a damaged cruiser, Engineer Suman worked with bleeding hands. The ship had taken heavy damage in the first attack. Half the crew was dead. The other half was trying to keep the weapons running while the walls crumbled around them. "We have lost main power," someone shouted. "Then switch to backup," Suman yelled back. "We have 3 backup systems. Use them all." The backup lines are damaged. We need to repair them manually. Suman looked at the broken cables sparking in the corner. The radiation in that section was lethal. Anyone who went in would be dead within hours. She did not hesitate. She grabbed her tools and walked toward the radiation. "What are you doing?" a young soldier asked. "My job," she said simply. "Keep the guns firing. That is an order." She disappeared into the poisoned section of the ship. Within minutes, the backup power came online. The cruiser's weapons roared back to life, cutting into the swarm with renewed fury. So-min watched through a broken window as her missiles found their targets. Her skin was already burning. Her vision was starting to blur, but she smiled. The battle raged for 19 hours. Junho lost his wing, then his engine, then his weapons. His ship was dying around him, drifting through a sea of debris and alien corpses. Ahead, he could see a queen mind, huge and pulsing with dark intelligence. It was coordinating the swarm attack, directing millions of ships with its alien thoughts. He had nothing left, no missiles, no guns, only his ship and his engine, which had maybe one burn left in it. "Control, this is Junho," he said into his communicator. "I am making an attack run on the Queen Mind. I will not be coming back." "Junho, no. Fall back. We can—" He turned off his communicator. His ship screamed forward, engine burning its final fuel. The Queen Mind saw him coming. It sent ships to intercept, but they were too slow. Junho was too fast, too determined. "This is for Earth," he whispered. His ship hit the Queen Mind like a bullet. The explosion was visible from 1,000 kilometers away. On the Guangaito, Yuna watched the Queen Mind die. Around her, officers cheered. But the celebration was short-lived. The swarm was still coming. They had killed one Queen Mind, but others remained. And humanity's fleet was down to 31 ships. General Dong-Su contacted her from Earth. His face was gray with exhaustion. "How long can you hold?" he asked. "Hours, maybe less." "The weapon needs 7 more minutes." Yuna looked at her fleet. 31 ships against 1 billion enemies. 7 minutes might as well be 7 years. "We will hold," she said. "Whatever it takes." She gave the order that she had hoped she would never have to give. 3 cruisers moved forward, placing themselves between the swarm and Earth. They knew what they were doing. They knew they would not survive. "Thank you," Yuna whispered to them. "Thank you." The cruisers charged into the heart of the swarm, guns blazing, buying minutes with their lives. On Earth, in a chamber filled with radiation and dying equipment, Dr. Tejo made his final calculations. His hands were blistered, his eyes were bleeding from the radiation, but his mind was clear. "Weapon charged," he said into his communicator. "Target locked, ready to fire on your command." General Dong-Su's voice came back, heavy with the weight of billions of lives. "Fire!" Tejo pressed the button, and the sky tore open. The weapon fired. For exactly 4.7 seconds, a point of absolute darkness appeared at the heart of the swarm. It was small at first, no bigger than a coin. Then it grew. Space itself bent around it, twisted like cloth being pulled into a drain. Light disappeared. Matter disappeared. The swarm ships closest to the singularity did not even have time to scream. They simply ceased to exist. Captain Yuna watched from the bridge of the damaged Guangaito. Her viewing screen filled with impossible images. Ships being stretched into thin lines before vanishing. Queen minds torn apart by forces they could not understand. Millions of creatures dying in an instant. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the black hole collapsed. The darkness folded in on itself and was gone. Where the heart of the swarm had been, there was nothing, just empty space and distant stars. 60% of the swarm has been destroyed, her sensor officer reported, his voice shaking. The Queen minds are dead. The surviving ships are confused. They are no longer coordinating. The remaining swarm vessels drifted aimlessly. Without their queen minds, they were nothing but animals. Hungry animals, yes, but no longer the organized force that had destroyed hundreds of worlds. Some attacked randomly. Others fled into the void. Within hours, they had scattered across the solar system, broken and lost. Humanity had won. On the Guangeto, no one cheered. They were too tired, too broken. Of the 312 ships that had fought, only 11 remained. Thousands of men and women had died in 19 hours of battle. The debris field around Earth would take years to clear. Yuna sat down in her command chair. Her uniform was torn. Her face was covered in blood and ash. She had not slept in 3 days. "Contact General Dongsu," she said quietly. Tell him it is over." On Earth, the news spread slowly at first, then all at once. People gathered in streets and parks and living rooms, watching their screens in disbelief. The swarm was defeated. Earth was safe. They had survived. Minister Jiwoo stood in the bunker, surrounded by exhausted advisors and military officers. She had not cried during the battle. She had not cried when ships were destroyed or heroes died. Now, alone in a corner, tears ran down her face. They had done it. Against all logic, against all probability, they had done it. Dr. Taiho died 3 hours after firing the weapon. The radiation had destroyed his body even as his mind worked the final calculations. His last words were simple. Did it work? When they told him yes, he smiled and closed his eyes. Engineer Sumin lasted 2 more days. She spent her final hours writing letters to her family, to the man she had left at the altar, to the young soldiers she had worked beside. Her last letter was to the people of Earth. "I do not regret anything," she wrote. "Given the chance, I would do it all again. Some things are worth dying for. You are worth dying for." Pilot Junho's body was never recovered. His name was added to the memorial that would be built in every nation on Earth. A simple stone with simple words. He gave everything. The galaxy watched humanity's victory in stunned silence. The Velthari, who had been so confident in their superiority, retreated to their home systems. Ambassador Thalo resigned from his position. He spent his remaining years studying humans, trying to understand how he had misjudged them so completely. Other species sent cautious messages to Earth. They were afraid at first. The weapon that had destroyed the swarm could destroy them just as easily. But the messages they received in return were not threats. "We want peace," Minister Jiwoo said in her final broadcast. "We want friendship. Our door is open to any species who comes with honest intentions. We will share what we have learned. We will help those who need help." She paused, and her voice grew firm. "But understand this. We will never again be someone else's cattle. We will never beg. We will never bow. We have earned our place among the stars, and we will defend it with everything we have." 1 year after the battle, delegations began arriving on Earth. They came not as saviors offering scraps of mercy, but as equals seeking knowledge. They wanted to understand the species that had looked extinction in the eye and refused to blink. Captain Yuna met them at the rebuilt space station orbiting Earth. She was older now, her hair fully gray, her body carrying scars from the battle that would never fully heal. But she stood straight and proud. "Why did you not accept the Velthari offer?" an alien ambassador asked her. "You could have saved 2 million people without fighting." Yuna looked out the window at Earth, blue and green and beautiful, full of billions of people who would never know how close they had come to extinction. "Because 2 million is not enough," she said. "Because we would rather die free than live as slaves. Because humanity does not abandon its own." The ambassador did not understand. Perhaps no alien species ever would, but they learned to respect it. In the years that followed, humanity spread across the stars. They built colonies on distant worlds. They made alliances with species who had once considered them primitive. They became a force that no one dared threaten. And through it all, they remembered the silence. The weeks when the galaxy waited for them to beg, and they said nothing. The quiet preparation. The hidden strength. They had been underestimated once. It would not happen again. On the memorial wall in the rebuilt city of Seoul, among thousands of names of heroes, there was a single phrase carved in stone. It had become humanity's motto, spoken at ceremonies and taught to children, and remembered in times of trouble. They expected us to beg. They did not know us at all. Earth had spoken, the galaxy had listened, and nothing would ever be the same.